Bases dropped on a Reaction Monday. Go ahead and dial it up. Reaction Monday here at SDH. I'm getting all of my getting all the caffeine ready to go in the system, and we'll talk about the weekend across the board. Whatever's on your mind, with whatever team is on your mind, we can go ahead and lay it out. That's why we like to do these Reaction Mondays, and that's what we're doing. So, like I said, whatever's on your mind today, we'll talk about it. Doesn't matter what team it is. We got news this morning we can get into as well. We have action from the weekend. Morning, Bam. I hope you're okay. Sorry about the positive PCR test. Just take care of yourself and do the best for you that you can. Obviously, we're thinking of you. So just take it easy. Do what you need to do to recover and feel better soon, because that stinks. That is definitely that's definitely right up there on a Monday for anything that's going on a Monday. That's right there. So once again, this morning could be about Atlanta United, could be about the Twos, could be about your favorite team overseas, and all the reactions, whatever the reactions are, go ahead and dial it up. It's all good. And we will discuss the entire time. Yes, LAFC getting 3 points helped you feel better. Yeah, and that'll do that. So once again, whatever's on your mind this morning, we'll talk about it as we go. And obviously, I know a lot of folks disappointed with the result of Atlanta United on the weekend. I know that Rich Ransom, he was interested on the Twitters this morning. Definitely was interested on the Twitters this morning. So, good to make sure that everybody is locked in and engaged this morning when it comes to everything going on in the world of soccer. So literally, it is whatever's on your mind, with whatever team is on your mind, across the board this morning, and that is what we're up to. So we'll bring in Jared Smith. And Jarrett, it's a Reaction Monday, but we've yet to have the opening kickoff. And that is, as always, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. And then they, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game with our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So what I wanted to do for opening kickoff this morning was revisit a topic that I brought up in our production thread yesterday. And I want to kind of canvass the room. And I want to see if anyone has had an incident like I had yesterday and bring it to the table to see if anyone has been the victim of target practice like I was yesterday. So yesterday before, Bam will get into that too. That's a part of it because we saw that all over the place. Morning, Coco. Opening kickoff. What I like to do, morning, Sean, congratulations on sending in the entire eastern section of Canada into a frenzy. Traditionally on Sundays, what I like to do is I'll go for a 4-mile walk. And what I will do, get the mileage in. It usually comes out to about 9,000 steps. So it's, pretty decent. I think traditionally for me, 2,200 steps is like a mile or something. So it ends up being like 4 miles by the time I'm done. It was an interesting final mile, to say the very least. There are parts of the path that I take that have trees, and there are, as we all know, there are certain animals that live in trees. I was passing under one particular tree, and something hit me in the head. And I didn't quite know what it was. You're passing under a tree, you're thinking maybe that a stick fell and popped you in the head or something like that. And you're thinking, okay, that didn't feel good. So even after whatever it was that hit me in the head, usually you get that bounce. You get that bounce that you're passing off of, passing something, you get hit in the head. You kind of feel like, okay, that moment of impact is gone. and then you just keep on doing what you're doing. After I'd passed under the tree, I was still kind of feeling the impact of whatever it was that hit me. So it's like, you're sitting there and you reach the top of your head, you sit there and, did they draw blood or something? As it turned out, it was not a stick that hit me in the head. A bird used my head for target practice, and he did a damn good job. Absolutely just popped me right in the top of the head, and he went 10-200 right on top of me. And so I'm sitting there, and it's like I'm trying to figure out, okay, how much of it was there, how much of it, how much of it, impacted me. And I'm taking like the shirts that I have, and I'm trying to sit there and, sit there and you get popped, and you're like, okay, great. And you sit there and you keep playing with it for like, a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, yep, nope, it's not going anywhere. So, traditionally getting ready for the twos match, you want to, get a shower and everything after you go for 4 miles. But yeah, I had to rewash my hair, and boom. So yeah. So my question this morning was, have any of you ever had a moment like that where you're sitting there and you're thinking that, maybe a stick got you in the head and you ended up being target practice for something? And so that's what you're staring at. So, yeah, I was just wondering. I was the victim of target practice from a bird who went 10-200 on my head, and I was wondering if anybody else out there had ever had that happen to them, or if I'm just by myself, which would not be the first time that this has happened. So, Jarrett, you said the last time that happened to you was on a boat, maybe?
Yeah, like a ferry boat across the water. Might have been in Michigan, going to Mackinac Island or something like that. Usually it's not my problem though, because the birds fly below my head.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you exist just south of the exosphere, that's what
Yes.
happens.
Yeah. When you're 9.5 feet tall and you're taller than pretty much anyone and everyone that's around you, then yeah, I can definitely see why that was the case. And Nick apparently told me that having a bird go 10-200 on you is good luck.
Depends on where you're from, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's like in Caddyshack when the bird ends up getting the ball stuck on its beak, and they say, oh yeah, it's good luck, and then Chevy Chase's character goes, yeah, in Haiti. Uh-huh. Okay, Bam, I did not know this. Just be glad you're not Ashley Young when the poop landed in his mouth.
I missed that one.
I missed.
I'm good with that. I didn't want to know about that this morning. So.
No.
Cool. Great. Day's been bad then. Cool. Days they can only go up from here. Thanks for ruining it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, I didn't know if I was by myself in this or not, or if anybody else had that kind of an experience where you're sitting there fishing out of your hair for the final mile of a 4-mile walk. So,
hey, you know what? It could have been worse.
Yeah, it
could have happened on Saturday after watching 90 minutes of that.
Yeah. So that was the opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code once again for those watching on Twitch. And use the code Soccer Down Here 15 to get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game after everything that you do. Thanks once again for our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So I know what I wanted to do this morning is just let everybody get it out of their system. Whatever's on your mind.
It's becoming a bit of a habit.
True.
Unfortunately.
I know.
We're having to do this.
I know, but the upside is that you have the chance to wipe the slate clean and turn things around on Wednesday when Colorado comes to town. And I know that fans are frustrated, and y'all ain't the only ones. And so, it was one of those matches where you end up with there's a lot of promise on the board. And as it turns out, it's the second match in a row where a former Atlanta United player scores and did a very respectful thing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then came out afterward and said on social media that he absolutely enjoyed his time here with Atlanta United, and much respect to the 17s. So Justin Meram gets a brace. Charlotte leaves with a 3-0 win after not having Capetti or DJ and another couple of players who were injured. Not the result you were looking for, obviously, if you're Atlanta United, Gonzalo Pineda, or anybody. And, I was walking through the building with 30 minutes to go, and I saw folks leaving. I saw folks heading to the exits after 60 minutes, and it's been a while since I've seen something like that happen at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, so what you talk about there is actually an important part of it for Charlotte. It makes what they did even more impressive because, and even more valuable for them because they're missing a couple of players going into this game with red card suspensions or yellow card accumulation suspensions. And I use this analogy for Eric Remedi when he was with Atlanta, but it's kind of like watching someone play Guitar Hero, where they lose the rhythm and they can't get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always mean that things are like terribly tragic in that moment, but it's not what it was because the first 10 plus minutes of that game, we're sitting there, I'd gotten settled in, we're watching it, and all I could think is like, oh, they might, for the first 10 minutes, it felt like, oh, they might play Charlotte out of this building.
Yeah.
Because you get, and you have literally everything you could have wanted because you have, God knows I was talking about this with somebody when we were leaving that like, as much as we malign Luis Arujo,
mm-hmm.
the first 10 minutes felt like, oh, this is going to be one of those games where, he dribbles through two guys, including Meram in that sequence, before skipping across the box that Kalina gets a finger to. That at first it's a step, it's weird and it's annoying because it's like a step in front of, I think it was Wiley, and then it gets deflected, and so it goes like a half step behind Almada. Either one of them would have just turned it in, and it's a half step too far, and then it's a half step behind after deflection. Luis, you just play right through them like it ain't no thing. And then you get the 1v1. It's good save from Kalina. It's you can tear it apart in the moment because it's one where Luis is on his right foot and he flips it to his left, and in doing so, he's going to flare his hips open generally. Yep. He's had a couple goals this year where he does that, and you think he's going to try and curl it to the outside post, and instead, I think he did it against Charlotte in the first game. Instead, he gets it on his left foot, opens up a bit, but then just drives through it and goes near post when the keeper starts trying to adjust, expecting that curl out. And it's saved again. You get another sequence with a cross from Lennon deep in where the interplay is really good between Luis and Lennon. And it felt like things are going very well. And then you get Charlotte with their first half chance of the game. It's a good switch to Meram on the left. He overcooks his cross, but they keep it in. They recycle it. Westwood gets timed. He's not closed down. I'm still not sure if he was trying to pick out the massive bodies in the middle or if he was trying to go long to Meram.
Right.
But either way, it gets to Meram, and I talked about it on the full-time report. It's kind of a short hop finish. It's good from Meram because it's one of those where you watch, you're like, oh, that's a tap in. I feel like with that ball bouncing the way it was, it would have been easy for him to mishit it, catch it like off the ankle bone and sky it over. It's a really good finish from Meram. I got to go back and watch it because yesterday was kind of a wash of a day for me. It was Mother's Day. I was running around all day. Yes. But Lennon peeks over his shoulder. It's like he's got Meram tracked, then he just stops because then he peeks over his shoulder and sees one of the midfielders making a late run into the box. So Lennon tucks in tighter to that mass of bodies, and there's nobody with Meram on the back post. The ball floats a couple inches over Lennon's head when he jumps. And so what you're left with is Justin Meram tapping it in. And like Atlanta doesn't fall apart at that point, but like Charlotte finds life, which is what you do in those situations. Because if you're Atlanta, you did not kill them off. Mm-hmm. You had them on the back foot for 10 minutes. You put one or two of those away, and we are talking about a different game.
Yeah.
But, if my mother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. If
yes.
frogs had wings, they would bump their ass when they jumped.
Correct.
Because we can talk about ifs all you want, but the problem is you were down 1-0. Charlotte kept bringing pressure. I thought they did a really good job, like bringing physicality into the midfield, not letting Atlanta get comfortable. And honestly, I thought Charlotte's biggest mistake was right before half when they really dropped back into that shell. And you get Atlanta had time on the ball. Like Almada has that little lift where he just kind of scoops it up to Gutman, who's making the run, and it's too narrow, so Gutman puts in the side netting. Then you get one like not long after that where Luis hits, and it's like the equivalent of, like, I'm not sure if you were trying to hit a lob in basketball or if you were trying to hit a floater. Mm-hmm. It's kind of that in between where it's so close to the back post. I'm not sure if he was trying to set up Gutman for the tap in or if he was trying to go for goal, because it comes close to both. But yeah, man, like, and then the second half happens, and you don't need to tell me what happened in the second half. I watched it too. It was very frustrating though, because you started out really well. And then, yeah, it was
the penalty and
penalty in the red card, which is the right decision. And I was trying to like make clear, like, yeah, it's if you judge that to be a penalty, if you like, because not all shirt pulls are penalties, but if it's a shirt pull and you judge it a penalty in that situation, it meets the criteria for dog, so it's a red card. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that point, wheels are in a ditch about 2 miles back. Yeah, you're done. And yeah, and then what you're left with is playing out the string. You made some questionable moves. Like, look, the tenor changed when Yorgos Giacomakis comes in the second half. I still didn't want him to come in.
Yeah, you weren't the only one.
Yeah, I did not want him to come in. I did not want to see him on the field because there is a lot of, there would have been a lot of risk for something bad happening. I'm glad he's 100%. He talked about afterward he's feeling 100%. It's just game fitness now, which is different than training fitness. Like, game fitness is something you just have to develop through playing. You can't just scrimmage your way to that or practice your way to that level of fitness. But
and going up against a team in Charlotte that proved itself to be very, very cynical at times when it came to their physical approach. I know a lot of folks were sitting there saying, look, you're down, keep.
If the referee lets you do it, you do it.
Yes.
You play the game. We talk about this with Philadelphia and New York. You play the game that, and I get what you mean, like, but you play the game that you are allowed to play. And if the game is being called that way, then yeah, you're going to play it that way. Mm-hmm. I don't begrudge him at all for that at all. And yeah, Michael, I mean, it's playing adequate defense. Yeah. But I mean, it's what I mean from it. I don't disagree with you because you've given up the second most goals in the league this year. So something is off. I do think a good chunk of it right now is Brad Guzan. Like, you don't have, and it's not a knock against Westberg or Diop. It's, you don't have your field marshal and your very vocal captain out there. You have quiet captains and loud captains. He is very much the latter. Mm-hmm. But you get on top of him like that, and then you're able to, then Charlotte has to really start pushing. It plays into your hands. You get the first goal, and then you just start laying mousetraps around the field. But Atlanta hasn't been getting the first goal consistently, so they're chasing. And it was a thing last year where they were giving up a lot of early goals in games and having to really wrestle back in, and it felt like they were better about it this year for a number of games, but it hasn't been the case, man. And yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to defend in those situations when you've got a lead and you know that they're going to be pushing, but there's going to be space behind, and you're, at least when you're on defensive situations there, you're in defensive situations because you're going to be defending versus you're getting bodies forward, and then you're getting stretched at the back is what I mean there. And I agree with Michael, and this is something you can talk about this. We can talk about that, John. Is Miles Robinson is part of that quiet leader contingent.
Right.
You need somebody else to be the sandpaper.
Yeah.
And not just physically. Like, Franco Ibarra, he didn't have a perfect game at all. Franco Ibarra went out there and gave you everything he had while he was on the field. He was flying around. He was popping up all over the field trying to make something happen and trying to drag them through, those doldrums. And I appreciate it from him because he's working his tail off trying to make it work. And it's but somebody else has to, somebody else has to be that guy. And I agree. I think Miles is a leader, but Miles is a quiet leader. He is a more quiet guy who is going to go out there with his tools, and he is quietly going to, on a good day, put together one of the better performances you'll see around the league. But when the chips are down, he's one who's going to lead by example. I don't think he is one to grab you by the scruff.
Right.
And you're missing guys like that. It'd be nice to throw on Ozzie Alonso when he's healthy to be that guy. But until then, until he is back, until you get Brad back, somebody has to be that guy who can grab everybody by the scruff and be a commanding presence in that sense to make sure that you don't fall off. I know that's easier said than done.
No, I know. And leaders lead in different ways. Is it somebody like a Franco Ibarra? Is it somebody like a Yorgos Giacomakis? Even though, he is that kind of a guy. And, he talked about it I've talked about what's going on after the match. Where was it? Coco was not a fan of the GG sub. No clue why. Jason said on the broadcast, a statement of intent. Coco sees it as burning tread on a guy that has had availability problems. But I had anticipated, Coco, that Yorgos Giacomakis would probably get 30 just to get back into rhythm.
If you were the one who was up 3-0 and you wanted to run him out there like you did in Charlotte, actually. By the way, and I'm going to be petty about this because I really don't give a damn, y'all. Hey, you won the season series 4-3 on aggregate. You let it get close. You almost Spursed it, but you won 4-3 on aggregate. This is the point where you're trash talking as you're picking yourself up off the ground and the bully has walked away to go about his day.
Yeah. You got the bloody nose and the torn shirt, and you're kind of sitting there, and you're coming off of the gravel road, and you're sitting there, and you're
screaming, "Add another thing!" as you're spitting your teeth out.
Yes.
Checking
while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, all the internal injuries are kicking in.
Yes. But no, to the point where Jason said it's a statement of intent. It's like, okay, who is going to be that guy for you that is going to try to drag you along? Is it a Franco Ibarra? Is it a Yorgos Giacomakis? And now that Yorgos is 100% physically healthy, not 100% game state ready, you bring him out there for 20 or 30, and it's like, okay, here's what we have. Now let's move forward with it. And so, no, I understand the idea of bringing Yorgos Giacomakis in. I know that I'm, in a 3-0 game, I'm somewhat risk averse. And then you also had that corner that was the same.
Not Atlanta, though.
No, I know. But you also had the same set piece play that worked when it hit the post a couple of minutes before the one that ended up going in the net.
That's how you knew it wasn't your day. Like everything else had pointed to, oh, it's not your day. Everything like you have kind of let yourself down in the big moments, but even the luck was going against you. Like where you hit the post, you had the deflection that almost goes in. Mm-hmm. Then off the corner, you hit the inside of the post and it sticks on the line and doesn't go over. Where you're like, oh man, like you have failed. Like it's not luck isn't why you lost the game at all.
No.
Charlotte executed the key moments better than you did. But you couldn't even buy anything at the end there. Like, oh, this is one of those days where like it's not going well and you're not executing and you're not going to get lucky. Man, those are long days.
Charlotte basically. Charlotte brought 1,000 fans.
Yes, I don't know why this was such a big talking point. Mm-hmm. I honestly, I'm not knocking Charlotte at all. Right. In fact, I'm happy they did. It was like everybody was freaking out. Like, there's a lot of Charlotte fans. No shit. You know how many fans you sent to Charlotte when Atlanta played there? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I know we just lost the. I know we just put the E on the podcast.
We did.
I know we just put the E on the podcast, but no shit. They're separated by Lake Hartwell and a couple hundred miles of bleak I-85. Mm-hmm. I swear to God, if you don't put a Buc-ee's right next, can you imagine putting a Buc-ee's on Lake Hartwell?
Oh, right.
Imagine this is your weekend. Friday, done with work, drive down to Atlanta from Charlotte, or vice versa. Yeah. You go watch a soccer game.
Yeah.
After the game, You drive back.
Seneca.
You
The Seneca exit with the fireworks building.
You drive back. You stop at Buc-ee's for all of your needs, because man, I don't know if you've been exposed to Buc-ee's. It's a newer thing in Georgia, but it's a thing in the United States. Buc-ee's is what happens if you let somebody from another country, if you tell them, I need you to generate what you think America is in a store.
Yes.
It's that. It's America the store, in all of the stereotypical ways, but also very good, like brisket tacos.
Absolutely.
And sliced brisket sandwiches. My God.
Pulled pork, absolutely.
Yeah, but imagine you go to the game on Saturday. Hey, you're feeling good, you're feeling bad. However you're feeling, on the way home, you're able to stop at Buc-ee's and go to Lake Hartwell and drop the boat in for a little bit and spend an afternoon on the lake and then go home Sunday night, maybe feeling a little bit better. I swear to God, put the Buc-ee's right around Lake Hartwell and make all of the money. I'm begging you.
Yep. The Pendleton Seneca exit right on the other side of the rest stop heading northbound on 75 or on 85. That's where you've got to put it. And I mean, if you put it, I'm sure if you put it in Livonia, I'm sure that they would find space for it. But I think that open space as you're heading northbound towards Charlotte on the left-hand side in the southbound lanes, right there at Pendleton and Seneca, you pass the rest stop in South Carolina, and then they have the fireworks buildings. Those facilities start popping up right there at those exits, which is just past Hartwell, and you can loop back pretty easily. And Abby says it was 2,000, which is good on you. You guys wanted to fill the building with 2,000 fans. They came in. They were loud in your building.
I don't know why it was such a big deal. People were freaking out like, they brought fans. Like, yeah, no shit. You took fans to Charlotte. It's not a long drive. Mm-hmm. Both fan bases it's already salty between them. It got a lot saltier after Saturday, I think. It's going to ramp up its intensity. The rivalry is in and of itself, but they're not far away. You don't have many drivable games in MLS because America is a giant-ass country that is spread out.
Yep.
So, yeah, when you have a local game that has a rivalry feel to it and it's not far away from each other, yes, they're both going to bring fans. I don't know why everybody and their mother was freaking out about Charlotte bringing 2,000 fans. Yeah. Great. Bring 3,000 next time. Bring 4,000. Atlanta, send 4,000 up to Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the game in Nashville. It was a great turnout for the game in Nashville despite the result. Great.
Yep.
These cities are not incredibly far apart in the grand scheme of American locations for a country that has eschewed public transit in the name of Henry Ford, but my God, y'all. It's great that everybody was bringing fans. Mm-hmm. I love it. Just don't be a dumbass like Toronto and Montreal and get into fights and have your visiting section shut down. And now Bob Bradley might be the next manager fired, no matter how you feel about Gonzalo Pineda right now in Atlanta. Trust me, Bob Bradley might be on a hotter seat. Like, it's awesome that they brought fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they brought fans. And then, by the way, I had the numbers flipped. Atlanta sent 2,000 to Charlotte. Charlotte sent 1,000. But
they were loud as hell because they were right underneath us in the press box. Mm-hmm. And when they start chanting, "This is a library," y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get the Shane Bell out.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. Where's Hannah Waddingham? I mean, seriously. Get Hannah Waddingham.
She's making all of the money on Ted Lasso these days, but yes, I know what you mean. I know she was the Shane Bell woman.
Yeah, she was.
Game of Thrones. If you didn't know that, now you do.
And so Alex says you're in your full and another thing mode. But that's
I mean, I'm already pissed off about the game itself because it's a rivalry game. It's a game where you felt like you started on the front foot. You're like, okay, cool. This is going to be a get right. Nope, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
They get the goal. And then you're in a situation where you're chasing. You get a couple chances right at halftime. And I was thinking, I talked about it after the game, I thought if Charlotte sits deep, if they start sitting, they're in more trouble because they were causing Atlanta problems when they pressured Atlanta, when they provided counter pressure after turnovers, when they tried to be combative in the midfield. Like, they didn't let Atlanta play through. Now, when Atlanta played through them and got through them like they did early in the game, there's tons of space. But Charlotte's defense is still a work in progress, and they're missing guys.
Yeah.
So that was where they were going to be vulnerable. And I thought if they came out in the second half and packed it in, I liked Atlanta's chances to find an equalizer. Now, obviously, it doesn't go that way because they go over the top to, I think it was Swiderski who brings it down in the left corner. Then is Jozwiak who gets pulled down. And goals change games.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Ideas are nice, but they're not tangible.
No. But what you've had is you've had a rivalry, but according to the folks that make the cartoons at MLS Soccer, apparently it's not. Coming into rivalry week that is no longer sponsored by a green bottled beer with a red star. And
well, MLS certainly didn't think it was a rivalry when they didn't put the cartoon. They didn't put Atlanta on their cartoon. So I mean, hey, Charlotte made a point that it's a rivalry, and they danced all the way home, as they should have.
Mm-hmm. So now, then the question is, for Atlanta United, what are you going to do about it? They came into your building, they punched you in the neck. What are you going to do? Fans were loud. When the fans are chanting, "This is a library," what are you going to do about it?
And to Michael's question, so this is an interesting question because I'm very interested because I think Charlotte. I don't know if Charlotte approaches that game the same way if they have Capetti.
Oh no,
they might still. They very well might still win. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that they didn't have guys so they changed their approach so that's why they won. No, they might have very well still won because Atlanta was bad. Atlanta was a bad run, bad in the big moments. So the result might have been the same. I would love to have seen what the approach would have been because Capetti's been a damn problem.
Yeah.
And maybe they approached it a little bit differently. They were missing guys. They provided pressure trying to create opportunities. And I think it would have been a little bit different, but the result might have been the same because again, Atlanta's performance just wasn't there. And I mean, we talked and I've said it before, and it's the same thing. That no one ever feels sorry for you in this league because you're not going to feel sorry for anyone else either.
Yeah.
No one's going to feel sorry for Atlanta about anything about missing Andrew Gutman. Now you don't have Andrew Gutman or Caleb Wiley. You have to figure out your left side for Wednesday night against Colorado, who played a good 45 minutes against Philly before they fell. They're just inconsistent because Colorado will also do that thing where they'll play these stretches where you're like, oh, this team's a problem. And then they'll play these other stretches in the game where you're like, oh, this team's a problem. It's a different kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's just I mean, how do you respond Wednesday? I don't know. Here's the problem with that, though. However, if you respond well Wednesday, the question is, was it just what was missing from Saturday? Then I know it's those key moments where you just weren't good enough, but the Miami game was weird because Miami didn't play you off the park. They got a penalty because Machop Chol brain farted for a second, and then they got a really good finish from Joseph. But Miami didn't play you off the park. You were pretty even with Nashville until the goal, but again, you go behind. Michael talked about it. Is it a fragility thing? In this league, it can be for some teams, and not just Atlanta, where when teams go behind, it just becomes a problem. It's always been the thing with if you get a lead on a Red Bulls-esque team in the playoffs, where you can start sitting back and they can't press you if you don't want the ball. But I know it's not the same thing. But you need a response Wednesday, but you needed a response Saturday too. Exactly. Not necessarily because the Miami game was, the Miami game to me wasn't horrendous. It wasn't some great offensive thing. It was you weren't blown off the field by Miami. You played pretty well. Miami was okay. They got their penalty and they got and then they got their second goal playing through.
Fun of show, yeah.
But I don't know, man. There's a lot that should go right for Wednesday, but talking about what should happen and what will happen are really different things sometimes. Because Colorado, Jason's point, Colorado's got to travel across the country on short rest. You get to stay home. Now, this also starts a weird stretch for Atlanta because after this, they have a weekend matchup in Orlando. And if you can't get up for that, I can't help you.
No, it's Chicago first. You go Chicago.
Chicago. I'm sorry. Chicago is on their new manager belts.
Uh-huh.
And St. Louis is on their St. Louis is like the king of Schadenfreude victim right now. A lot of folks are very much enjoying the. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to change the league, St. Louis.
Yeah, after their hot start, St. Louis is now back to 6-4-1. They're third in the West. So, to answer questions, Colorado on the road this year is 0-2-3. They are one of two teams. Away from home, they are 2-2-3. They're one of two teams in the West that have not won at home this year. So they're 2-2-3 on the road this year.
Oh, it's the plague prairie dogs.
Yes, it is.
That's what it gives you.
Yeah, and we're talking about right now how the margin for error has disappeared.
Wiley, I'll make fun of St. Louis. I'll make fun of Atlanta too. I'll make fun of St. Louis because I figured something like this would happen. Not necessarily because I thought they were bad, but they're an expansion team. You're an expansion team. You're missing depth, and you're playing an energy drink style of soccer. You're going to have games where it's just like you're going to have like Red Bulls and Philly go through those stretches where you're just like, what the hell are you doing? I'm going to make fun of St. Louis for the time being, though, just because it's fun and because I need something positive in my life.
Yeah.
Yes. No, the irony is not lost on me. I promise.
Correct. So we mentioned margin for error now having lost 4 in a row in all competitions. That's gone poof. Right now, and we mentioned how tough MLS is as a league across the board. Right now in the Eastern Conference, 3rd through 13th is separated by 5 points. 3rd through 13th, 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta right now in 4th at 18 points, obviously a win out of 3rd, what have you. But Atlanta right now is in 4th. And Charlotte is at 15 points, is in 12th. I mean, there are 7 teams, that have 15 points right now in the Eastern Conference.
Look, those you did everything right by winning those early games. And I don't care how you did it; it's hook or crook sometimes. There were things where you're like, okay, I need y'all to clean this up. Don't leave it so late. Don't scare us. It's fun, but don't scare us like that. But results are results because on the other hand, the other side of that coin is you could be in a situation where you're saying, "Wow, we've outplayed teams, but we're sitting here with 10 points, looking up at everybody." Well, I mean, I'd rather be in the former category of kind of looking down at everybody. But what you have built up in that buffer, which was great, and the reason you do it is so that you can weather storms and weather cold spells. But you've burned through, 3 straight losses. You've burned through that cold spell.
Yeah, you burned.
I get 2 of them are on the road.
You burned through that capital that you picked up early in the year.
You lost one at Nashville, which seems to be your Babadook that lives in the closet and that lives in the basement.
Yeah,
and eats everything in your house, including you.
Yep.
Miami was weird, and then this was just a bad loss.
Yeah.
Memphis being sandwiched in all of that, I think, makes it feel a lot worse. Not worse than it should. I'm not going to tell you how to feel about that, because I think it was the way you lost to Memphis that was as frustrating as anything, because Memphis brought the fight to you, and it was almost like you got ahead against Memphis, and then like basically kicked it into neutral going down the street. Memphis kicked it into 4th gear, and then you forgot you had a clutch to shift it back, and it's not okay. Man, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to it, because you have Chicago's had talent. Chicago hadn't been able to put things together. They got the new manager bounce.
Yeah.
Then you have Orlando, and you have, even though 2 of those are road games, again, you have a road head. You're in a stretch where it's 4 out of 6 are on the road. Well, you're gonna have to fight and claw something out of them.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah. And so that's where you are, and so
you should win at home. That's the thing is, we talk about getting points on the road is great,
mm-hmm.
But you got to win games at home. You can't, and especially you can't have get those games at home where it's just where you watch and you're like, that's just like the whole like and looking just at score lines can be tricky because you factor in the fact that you get the red card and in the 47th minute, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of just all over but the shouting at that point with the red card and the penalty. But you missed your opportunity to not be in that situation. And that's what you can't avoid. If Colorado comes in here and you're able to get on top and you're able to have a good start to the game, you got to put something away.
Yeah.
Because you can't sit there every game and go, well, we started well, but we didn't capitalize. Well, then it's still level. And then honestly, the only one comes to mind, John, is the game against DC in 2017 at Bobby Dodd, where you scored a goal off Kenwin Jones with a header. But you could have had 3 goals in the first 10 minutes against DC. You didn't, and DC wins that game 3-1.
Yeah.
You could have buried them inside of 10 minutes and the game would have been over. And you didn't. And DC righted the ship. You were sloppy, and DC just decided to beat you, and you didn't kill them off. So you have to be lethal. You have to be you have to be lethal, and you have to be accurate, and you have to be strict about how you handle games like that. So Niall, that was Lucha.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sebastian Letou was also in that game to take it back farther.
I think so. I think you're right.
I think it was like Sebastian Letou's last season.
Mm-hmm. And obviously now with the Gutman red, you've got to figure out what you're going to do with personnel. Is it Abram? Is it Hernandez? And we've seen Ronald. We saw Ronald in Open Cup, and we've seen him with the twos. And so, what is it going to look like? Do you slide Luis over? Do you slide Brooks up? And we bring in Nick Alifi to the conversation here on a reaction.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it is it's a 3-way dance. And Nick, we're trying to figure out now with the Gutman red what it's going to look like on Wednesday with Colorado, because if I'm not mistaken, Caleb is now at the U20s, and you're trying to figure out what to do in this case now with no Gutman and how you figure things out formationally and with personnel heading into a game you got to have against Colorado in the midweek.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about this. I'd love to BS you guys a great answer and say that, just slot player X into that role and, it's no problem. But I think we all are a bit wiser and smarter than that. So you're calling up someone from the twos, maybe.
We're thinking if it's going to be somebody, it's going to be some combination of Abram and Hernandez that are attached to that idea. And then, is it moving Luis over to the left? Do you bring Brooks up? Is Ronald on the right? Is Luis Abram on the left? In that case, and trying to figure it all out.
Well, I think with Luis Araujo that you need to change something. I one time watching baseball, they had Pete Rose on the Fox broadcast with A-Rod and I want to say Poppy and a couple of other guys. And they were talking about a player who was in a slump. And so the guys were like, oh, do you change your swing? Do you change? And Pete cuts him off. He says, no, you're not changing your swing. It's what got you to the bigs. He goes, but what I'm doing is I'm changing anything else but my swing. I'm going to step higher into the box. I'll step lower into the box. I'll step closer to the plate. I'll step farther to the plate. I'll, choke up on the bat a little bit. I may give it a little more space. He goes, but I'm not changing my swing. And here's the thing is that I know that it's frustrating as anything when Araujo gets in one-on-one situations and kicks the ball right to the keeper, right? I get it. I was at the stadium too. I saw it, but I would have to say that I think if let's go ahead and take this two ways.
Sure.
One is you plan to move Araujo in the summer. Okay. And the other is that you want to keep Araujo. It's the two lines of thought. Both of them require an improvement in play. Okay. You must get an improvement of play from him, whether it's the finishing, whether it's finding a better option other than trying to dribble two guys, whatever it is. But I'm going to start with what seemingly to me is a smaller change. I'm going to move him to the other side of the field first.
Okay.
We're going to switch the side of the field.
Yep. We're uninverting him.
Yep. And we're going to move him to the other side of the field and just try to see if we can shake whatever is happening loose. Mm-hmm. We got to change the mindset just a little bit. The man's in his own head. I think it's clear to everybody he's in his own head. And so we need to, if you want to move him, you must build value for him. And to do that, you must get him out of his head and change his situation up. You can't move him to the bench and get any money for him. You can't keep doing what you're doing, banging your head against the wall, and get money for him. Change it up. Move him to the other side of the field. Change things around. You must change things around because you are, one of your best players is sitting on a red, another one's off at the World Cup, and this is just one of those things that you're going to have to navigate. Yeah. You just have to. So you have to change things up. I would have to say that, whether or not you call someone from the twos or you bring Abram in, I mean, have we seen anything from Abram that says that he's ready to go?
That's something it's going to have to be examined internally during the week of practice to figure out what's going on.
I'm going to hold on. Let me address Michael. Michael had asked a question here, and sorry, and then we'll jump back in. Why hasn't Pineda changed something? Right now, your challenges have been when you have this kind of dip in form. The last thing you want to do is overcorrect, where you change up too much, and now it becomes a complete mess. Mm-hmm. If anything, we're going to keep doing some things at a basic level, like what we do day in and day out is not going to change. And with hopes that some of the people who are either switching off at very poor times kind of shake loose and figure out, I probably don't need to do that. Or you look for somebody who's going to be a communication leader on the back line, which I think is completely missing at this point. And you're not going to get those things improved by changing up everything.
Yeah.
So you have to keep some sort of stability and then look at individuals and say, okay, you're shutting off here in this situation. You need to speak up more in this situation. And if we change everything up, it's not an episode of Ted Lasso. We can't move to total football midseason. Yeah. So we have to make sure that we are changing basic things, communication, which is what happened with Justin Meram's first goal. It's what happened with Justin Meram's brace. I would say that communication mix-ups led to the red card because you have someone who has to make a dramatic last-second attempt to try to stop. But, you yank a jersey, you're going to get called dog, so you're getting the red, right? So there's going to be things that I'm sure that he's changed, that Pineda has changed maybe in practice, that maybe he's changed elsewhere, but you're not trying to change your entire game plan because then you're asking for a nightmare. And with that, I yield the floor back.
Jarrett, go for it.
No, how you deal with this for this week, I don't know the exact answer. I think if you want to keep it simple, I think it's just Hernandez plays left back. Yeah. If you want to go 4-3-3 still, you play Hernandez at left back. And I said on the full-time report, like, hey man, this is go time for Derek Etienne Jr., who's been disappointment on the field. I think Derek Etienne Jr. is an incredibly valuable player for this franchise because of what he brings you to the locker room. He is a good personality and a good dude to have in the locker room, especially in times like this. You need somebody in there who's not going to who's going to be able to not necessarily keep it light in the sense of not taking it seriously, but keep people from getting too far down on themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you need production out of him, and he hasn't done it yet. And he's looked timid at times. It looked like he's unsure. And I don't know what it is, because we've seen him do it before, and I think he can be that guy. He's just he's going to get. Yeah, I think he's going to get opportunities here with Caleb Wiley at the U20s.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to have to take advantage of those opportunities, and he can. So now it's just it's frustrating because you want him to do it because he can do it. So it would be, I guess, him up top. If you want to get weird, though, and I don't disagree with Nick, I'm all for uninverting Luis Araujo. I think he looked his best when you put him on the left-hand side in those stretches in Miami. And if that means he's coming off the bench for now, so be it. Nick, I don't know how you feel about this. We've talked about it last week. When the summer window gets here, I don't care if I lose money on the deal. If the right offer comes in that he's comfortable going, I'm hitting the reset button with Luis for my sake and for his sake.
Well, I want to see what happens when we put him on the left side, right? He's a guy who keeps trying to shoot with his right foot in times when just switch it to your left and give it a run. And when you're running full speed like he is, and you're trying to put the ball to the outside of your right foot to make that swaz, that to try to hit that angle, that really tight angle, it's extraordinarily difficult to do. I don't pro or not. But I think that's I think there's confidence issue with Araujo. That's he has confidence in his ability one-on-one with players, right? We see that. That's why you see the spins that he does. That's why you see, him, putting dudes into the spin cycle, at what would be probably around the 40-yard marker. And then whenever he gets to the 18, all of a sudden that goal gets to be about the size of a postage stamp to him. And that's not really helping things. Yeah. Put him on a side where he can utilize his dominant foot and let him put some shots on frame that he might feel a little bit more comfortable with. And I think you might start to open things up. I think Etienne Jr. is also a crisis of confidence, because you're sitting on the bench and this kid in Wiley is absolutely running things, right? Mm-hmm. He's faster. He's more technically gifted. And when you are looking at this, like, how in the world am I going to compete with this? I got to make everything perfect. I have to make everything spot on. I can't have any mistakes. I have to, and that can lead to more problematic situations than anything else. When you start trying to shoot for that perfection and everything, you're trying to, because as my old jiu-jitsu instructor used to say, you're too busy trying to prove yourself instead of improving. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all Etienne Jr. needs to worry about right now. Just improve. Don't worry about proving yourself, because the situations are going to present themselves to you with Wiley going to the World Cup, with injuries, with red cards, yellow card accumulations that are guaranteed to happen at some point in the season. Just prove, just the only thing you need to prove is that you're willing to improve. The end, nothing else. Mm-hmm. But I will agree, Jarrett, that if the summer comes along and Araujo says, hey, look, I think it's time for me to get out of here, and some team from Brazil calls up and makes even a remotely reasonable offer, yep, no problem. Have a great one. Is this your money that they're losing? No, it's not. So, you're going to take, we aren't the Premier League. We aren't La Liga. There's a certain boom or bust factor that comes to players who are going to come into our league. And that margin is going to be a bit thinner than I think you'll have with, in other leagues with other people coming in. And so if he moves to the left-hand side and he starts lighting things up, are you still going to be desperate to move him? Not me, but that's something to consider.
It is. And it's one of those things where, like, you go back to what he talked about at the end of last season. He said all the right things. And I think everything eats at him a lot, Luis, because he knows the pressure that's on him. He knows he's not performing. He's not stupid. And I think he puts in, God knows we've talked about this before, like, and I know like effort is the minimum that you can ask for guys, but trust me, we've seen DPs come in this league and not give that. He's done that. It's just he hasn't provided what you've needed. And if you get the option to move him in the summer window, unless something weird happens in the next month and a half, yeah, I'm doing it. And if for no other reason, I'm going to shake his hand and say, hey, I'm sorry it didn't work out. Thanks for busting your tail. I really do appreciate that. But I think this is best for both of us. Where do you want to go? This club has been good about sending guys where they want to go and taking care of their players when they leave. Where do you want to go? Okay. Well, here's a list of places that we've accepted from. Any of these work for you? Great. We'll get you squared up. We got some Delta points stored in the back. We'll get you upgraded, first class. Have a great flight.
That's right.
We already got an Uber Black to get you to the airport if you need it. Whatever you need, man. And then you go from there.
Look, I think Nal brings up a great point. Who would we want if you send Araujo out? Because I mean, think about this, right? With Yorgos out, Miguel Berry, it looks like Godzilla trying to smash Tokyo, right? Like it's he's a big body moving, but he ain't exactly moving at speed. You know what I'm saying? When Araujo's in and he could take point on press, a lot of times he's the first guy getting down the field, man. And that to me is something you don't really want to give up. I don't want to give up, the 8 good things that Araujo does. I think that his movement in and around the 18 can be fixed. I know I sound like the desperate guy. I can fix him, but
you have the technology.
He sounds like the person in a toxic relationship.
The relationship wise, I can fix it. I can fix everything. But look, his work rate when he's running and he's moving is fantastic, right? You just don't see him do a sprint down the field and then park while everyone else drops back. Right. Okay. So that's fine. Okay. But in and around the 18, part of that is going to be on him to fix, right? He's going to have to do the work to get out of his head in and around the 18. He's going to have to, whether it's through visualization, whether it's through sports psychology, he's going to have to figure out the best place to be and when. It's something where I see good things with him. I think the move to the left would absolutely make a world of difference. Just because it's that slight change that can kind of spur action. But Barry, for me, look, God bless him, man. I didn't look at a man and say, okay, well, it doesn't look like he's even attempting to run. It looked like he was trying to run. It looked like he was also 2.5 steps too slow. And I can't coach speed, right? So, we have to, I think in the transfer window, you can look for a lot of things, but if you move Araujo and you have some money to play with, from the sounds, from what it sounds like,
to play with.
Yeah, it sounds like we got money to play with as it is. From what Garth has said, I want a quality striker that has us here in the Twitch pitches yelling and screaming about who needs to start. Oh, Nick, you're so stupid. Why would you say this guy needs to start when Gigi's right here? Or no, you're an idiot because this guy is clearly better in this situation than Gigi is over here. Look, I want that kind of argument going on, right? That's the kind of argument I want to have. But we need to have somebody come in when the hamstring issue hits, when the quad issue hits. We've already seen from this year that officials are absolutely not protecting playmakers at all.
True.
So you might as well go ahead.
Not just here either. Guys are getting knocked around the league left and right now.
Well, here's the thing. Michael Head says, why would anyone take Araujo? Look, there are people in Brazil, especially, who will say this guy played in Ligue 1 and there's something wrong with America, not something wrong with him.
I think it was Palmeiras that was the check your sources allegedly moved interest for Luis.
And it's the thing is like it's easy in hindsight now with Luis to like, man, why didn't we take that at the time? Like I was fine not taking it at the time because after what he had said and the way he performed in preseason, I was very interested to see what he would show you. Unfortunately, it hasn't panned out at all. But he had said and done the things in preseason that you needed him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it just has not worked as far as what you get otherwise. Like you find John, you'll understand this, and that I've been working to antagonize everybody in Aberdeen because I thought you offer a TAM deal for Duke.
There you go. Yeah, there have been folks in the Twitch pitch that have been saying dial up Lanús one more time to get Pedro de la Vega for the right hand side.
Well, the thing is that for people asking when Michael says that hard to believe that Araujo was a starter on a Ligue 1 champion. Look, if you put Araujo in Scotland, do you think he's going to have the same level of success? No, because the style of play is completely different. Araujo probably fit Ligue 1 like a glove, right?
Yeah.
Go look at guys like Marcelino. Go look at guys like Pitti. Like the fit doesn't matter. Like Pitti was down there tearing things up in Argentina. MLS isn't the same.
Right.
By the way, Marcy scored this weekend.
Yes. There we go.
It's true.
But if you watched any River game when Pitti was playing, you were like, oh my God, get him up here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you saw any of these other, if you saw like when Barca went back down to River, right. What happened? I mean, you have fit matters. Fit matters.
Yeah.
The style of play, the space that's available, the way that teams across the board tend to play, that they may have, 3 things that are the same, but like 4 things that are different, but there's still differences that come into play here that we have to factor in. Atlanta, I thought when they made the move for Araujo, I thought, okay, this is a good move, right? And we've seen flashes where, wow, this guy can really be special.
Mm-hmm.
We've also seen things that make you go, okay, I need to put my face through a piece of plate steel at the moment because this is so annoying. But those flashes don't happen by accident. They don't happen because the Earth sign and Capricorn are lined up with the moon in transition and Mercury in retrograde or whatever. It happens because the player has skills. He just got to get out of his own damn head. And if people don't want to buy into that, great. That's what I buy into. And I'm not trying to convince you guys to buy into it, but this is a show where we talk soccer, and I'm talking soccer the way I see it. And I think that small, subtle changes first, and then if that doesn't work, brother, the immortal words of Hulk Hogan, brother, this don't work for me. And you move them, for like we said, any reasonable offer.
Mm-hmm.
And because Brazil will look at this and say, there's nothing wrong with this player. There's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll spend that money.
It is past the top of the hour. I guess my next question, Jared, how much longer are you with us before you turn into a pumpkin?
Well, we'll see. Now that you have opened the Necronomicon, and you have summoned the powers of Paulding County,
oh God,
and Nick and I are still due to fight outside of the old catfish den.
That's right.
I got a little time.
Okay. Since it is the top of the hour, it's time for me to read a promo. And we have to thank our friends that keep us on the air every day, and we will certainly do that. And I got to remember what my levels are and take out a loop, and then hit play and we read a promo. What is that? I hit the wrong music. There we go.
Oh God.
Yeah, hit low.
John's doing dubstep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden I'm doing. Oh man, who is it? It's God, who did the
Okay,
remix?
maybe I didn't say the words exactly right, every single syllable.
No, but it was. Oh,
John, we're making you watch Army of Darkness because this ain't clicking, my man.
No. I was trying to figure out who it was that did the remix of the Doc Emmerich quotes, and it was they wore like the funky helmets and things like that. I can't remember who that is. Anyway,
The funky helmets.
yeah,
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
no, it's like music and stuff, and I can't remember who it is.
Devo.
No, watch This Island Earth now. Thank you.
No, it's like a
Normal view. Normal view.
Exactly. No, it's not Devo. It's the ones that do the remixes these days, and they did the remix with Doc Emmerich.
Oh, Daft Punk.
That, yes, thank you, Daft Punk. That's what that sounded like. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's our friends at Lemonize Service. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Lemonize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that lemonizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment. We like that these days. Very green way of going about things without any kind of toxic residue as they get rid of your odors. Different than Febreze or our other masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard. Because when we reach under the sink or above us in the cupboard, you pull out that masking agent. There's a reason they call it a masking agent, because when you spray it in the air, all it does is mask the odor. It doesn't attack the problem like our friends at the Lemonize Service do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's their website. This is where I grab my pen. Go to lemonize.com, but after the .com, go /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your problems. So full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, lemonize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. A Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Reaction Monday.
Here's one thing. Lemonize, baby. You don't want masking agents.
No.
You don't want masking agents. Don't
Bad.
you mask up in your house.
It's bad, Jerry.
Let me, and I'm going to address Uncle No Pockets here. He says he had plenty of time to prove himself, time to move on at this point. Can't keep hoping a DP player turns it around after this long. Okay, I'm going to expose a shady thing in the used car business that can happen.
80/used cars? No.
I'm talking about like these are the places where you just drive by and you know, man, I really don't need to get a car from there. There are times that you drive by a lot and you look at a car and you're like, ooh, I really need a 94 Camaro in my life. And
Jesus Christ, that's cursed.
Yeah. And so so you go to crank it up and the transmission is completely gone, right? Because some douchebag ran the thing like into the ground. Now, what'll happen is you can't move that car. You can sell it for scrap, but you can't move the car off the lot. So what happens is they drop the transmission, they put instant grits in. This is a true story. Put the transmission back in, and you'll get about 3 to 4 days of good running time out of that thing before it completely gums up the works and just shuts down, right? Somebody comes, they test drive. Oh, wow, the car drives like a gem. Fantastic. Yep, we'll take that money. You're buying it as is, right? You're buying the car as is. You know, there's no warranty with this car. You're buying it. Okay. Exactly. And off it goes. You had to create value. In this case, an operational vehicle.
Sounds like me and the Nissan Murano. Continue.
Yeah. You have to create value. Mm-hmm. You are not going to create value. Keep in mind, hear us out. What did we say? If a reasonable offer comes along in summer, great. He's moving on. But we have to establish that the player has some level of value to begin with. Because he's on a guaranteed contract, right? Guaranteed contract. The best way to get that off our books is have someone come in and buy him, right? So we play him, we uninvert him, put him on the left so he can move to dominant foot, shoot, maybe by hook or by crook, put the ball in the back of the net, establish some value, and then in the summer, he's out the door. Because there's a huge difference between teams calling you and you calling them to try to move your player. So let him score a couple of goals, let him get some assists, let him maybe kind of get out of his own head for a little bit by a simple transition to the other side of the field. And then that would be our grits in the transmission. And the value is there and you can move him, right? But simply saying, hey, look, there's no amount of time that we're going to give this guy. He's a bum. We're getting him out. I don't know how much value you're going to create with that mindset, And yeah, Coco, let him score a couple of goals. I mean, we have from now until October, at the end of the season. You have now until you have how long the summer transfer window is June to August?
August.
Yeah. You have time with something as simple as a swap to the other side of the field. You can create some value and then move them. To me, that is the best way to do it. But simply saying, we're not giving this guy any more time, I don't know how you generate any sort of value by putting him on the bench. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, because what you have is a resource, and you're not doing any good to yourself and the market value of that resource that you are trying to move by having that resource be inactive in whatever form that takes.
And I think Coco nailed it. It's almost to the point of like a pitcher with the yips at this point. It's like Chuck Knobloch, right?
Well, I mean, weren't we
Chuck Knobloch or is he?
Yeah, it was. Well, Dale Murphy as a catcher.
Chuck Knobloch was one. My favorite one still. No, Chuck. Well, we can do Chuck Knobloch. That's fine.
Sachs, Knobloch, Dale Murphy as a catcher. We were joking about this. I mean, it turned into a bit of a
Rick Ankiel.
Well, Rick Ankiel, but
Rick Ankiel couldn't throw a strike, and all of a sudden they put Rick Ankiel. Rick Ankiel hit a ball in the 2010 NLDS for the Braves against the Giants that still has not landed in the Bay.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also the notion we were doing the same thing with Miguel at one point. That was where it almost just turned into a bit of a laugher with Miggy. It's like, okay, well, Miggy's not scoring. He's not scoring. He's not scoring. And then, it just turns into a bit of a running bit at that point.
And Alex, my thing is we have not been letting him score a few goals to this point because we're talking about moving him to the left side, right? Leaving him where he is. He's in his head. It's not going to work. It's not working. He's not transitioning from his dominant foot to his weaker foot. He's staring down keepers. He's passing the ball right to him. We got to do something to get him out of his head. So the conversation has been move him to the left side where maybe that little subtle change allows him to get out of his head. And
it's like pairing up somebody with Terry Pendleton and a hitting coach to sit there and say, okay, change this little bit with your swing and see if that helps you. And so with Luis, you move him from the right to the left, that's changing his swing a little bit. So basically this is like pairing him with a hitting coach.
And I mean, like, I remember watching the Chuck Knobloch game where he suddenly forgot how to throw the damn ball, right? I mean, like it's mind-bending what happens in this situation. You saw the same thing in basketball with that kid who Fultz, who was with the Sixers and suddenly forgot how to shoot the ball. Like the guy you saw these clips coming out of of practice where Fultz suddenly just like the ball's going 3 feet wide of the net. This is a professional basketball player. When you get into your head, it can completely screw everything up. And as we said earlier, for those who aren't, who are just tuning in, whether you are get Araujo out now or let's work it out and see if he can be the DP we all believe he can be. No matter what, you need him to get out of this funk, no matter what. And he's not going to do it on the bench. He's going to do it if he's presented with situations where he can move maybe to the other side of the field, move to his dominant foot, and put some more shots on goal in a more confident position. But, it's it's something where you can coach everything from transitioning the ball to the back up to the 18, but when it gets up to the 18, it's on you, right? It's on you and your confidence to put a quality shot on goal. But at the end of the day, Abster, I think he nailed it. Either he gets out of the funk and does well, and we can sell him for money, or he gets out of his funk and does well, and he stays and he's the DP, right? Mm-hmm. But Hutcho, if you move him to the bench, that DP contract does not go away, right? And so then you just have a DP sitting and doing nothing but trying to improve in practice. I think he brings, from what I have seen so far, more on the field than anyone else on in an 18 in a game day 18. So I don't, to me, it's like, all right, if he sits on the bench and does nothing, you might as well set the money on fire.
Yeah.
Just a subtle shift somewhere on the field. Well, I don't care if it's a game where it's like, where we're like at this one again, like we're in a Charlotte situation where you're down, 3 goals. All right, Luis, baby, you're going up to striker. Why? Because we're just doing it. I don't know. The sky's blue. You're moving up to, the striker position. We're going to put Chol in your position, and we're just going to run like that. Change something. Again, like Pete Rose said, move up in the box, move back in the box, move closer to the plate, move away from the plate, choke up on the bat, choke down on the bat, change little things here and there to try to get out of the rut. But these are things that you're going to have to do. Otherwise you have a DP sitting on the bench, and that does nothing for anyone at all. Right. Completely counterproductive.
It's counterproductive to the on the field. It's counterproductive to your financials. It's counterproductive to trying to improve your situation. All of these different things. Sitting a DP does you no good financially, and it does you no good in an activity sense, because, like you said, you're setting money on fire at that point. It's like you have an inactive DP that's not doing anybody any good. It's not doing the player any good. It's not doing your bottom line any good if you want to move the player on. So you've got to find something with that individual, get him to the hitting coach to figure out, okay, how can we adjust your swing a little bit to get contact back with the ball, those kinds of things.
Right. And I'm not someone who's sitting here saying, oh, everything's fine, just give it time. No, I think there's something fundamentally right now. You are in a position where there has to be, something changed. Something has to be, whether something, in practice, whether it's, they have ideas of who's shutting off or, who's dropping in intensity. We'll use Pineda's words here. Like there's a lack of intensity. Find out who's not intense enough. And those people, you say, okay, you're going to the bench because you're going to watch somebody else come in and play with some intensity, and you're going to be coming off the bench. That's how it's going to go. Right. So to me, that if you're changing stuff, start there. Firing Pineda right now, before the All-Star break, is not going to do anything for you, right? Because who are you going to bring in?
Yeah.
If you bench Araujo, what value are you going to create for him in the transfer market? Teams will just sit and wait for you to release him. Overseas anyway. You don't necessarily want to move him to another MLS team, do you? I mean, we've kind of seen how that works, so you don't want to do it. Yeah. I disagree with setting money on fire is what we're best at. I would rather have a team take big ass swings at players who could be game changers than to be Minnesota. If you want a team that's conservative with cash, Minnesota's right there. If we want to be that, if we want to be the Red Bulls, where we're starting, little Tommy Callahan, who was the third string, the third string water boy at Presbyterian College, by all means. But I would rather have a team that goes and takes big swings and tries to bring in players from League On and bring in players who were targeted by European teams out of South America, and we won the race. I would, that's Joseph Martinez was a big swing, where it was like, this guy is floundering at Torino. He's not really doing anything. And then he comes here and sets the league on fire before his knee spontaneously combusts up in Nashville. Miguel Almiron was, was somebody who there were conversations about from Europe, where he had European aspirations. Atlanta took a big swing and brought him in, so there are times when players will flounder somewhere or they have aspirations to go somewhere, and you need to take a big gamble to bring people in. And sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. I would much rather take that than, again, to be Minnesota, the Red Bulls, DC in its current state. Who else? Who else is pretty cheap on the cash? San Jose's been, sorry, Jarrett, has been cheap on the cash. There were times when, Orlando, how many teams I just named? I would much rather be Atlanta taking big swings. Yeah, the Rapids. There we go. Rapids. Yep. Philly. I would much rather take big swings and miss than to be like, Jesus Christ, you all have money, spend it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, come on, take the big swing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to be one of these boring ass generic white bread mayonnaise clubs that does nothing with this money. It's not my money.
White bread mayonnaise FC.
It's not like I have to go cut 3 more lawns so we can afford the next transfer out of Uruguay. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not my damn money. But if my club goes and spins, go.
We've already got the explicit rating for the show this morning, Nick, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, I'm just saying I would rather.
Yeah,
take
I already blew past that when I complained about people being surprised that Charlotte brought fans with the surprise Pikachu face.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's 85. There's Lake Hartwell, Clemson, which is basically Auburn University on a lake, and not much else.
I can't imagine. I just remember when Atlanta and Minnesota came in, and the reason I keep bringing Minnesota was because one of my, somebody's like a brother to me, lives up in Minneapolis, and he and I were talking about, we're going back and forth about being excited about having 2 teams coming into the league, and so I watched the Minnesota press conference, and Atlanta at the time was, had hired Tata Martino, and we're playing. We're going to be playing in the Benz, and this giant technological monstrosities being built downtown. And the Minnesota brass are like, well, we're not Atlanta and we're going to do things differently.
No ish, Sherlock. Yeah.
And it's like, I just remember watching that being like, how in God's green, beautiful earth are you generating excitement by saying we're not going to be like the people who are spending the money down in Atlanta?
But we'll do the Scandinavian variant and bring in all of those players.
I mean, but that it worked for Nashville, and it worked. Honestly, it worked for Atlanta in a roundabout way. Yakimakis did win a Golden Boot in Scandinavia in the Eredivisie. By the way, I think Celtic is trying to get the next Golden Boot winner out of the Eredivisie. They have decided this is their business model too.
I mean, but it works, right?
Josie Altidore won a Golden Boot in the Eredivisie. I think he did. He came real close, and he didn't.
But it's like in Nashville. Nashville said the same thing. Well, we're just not, we're going to do things differently. And I remember Philly saying like, well, we just don't have the resources. The hell you don't. The hell you don't.
Built through our academy.
Right. We're going to build through our academy. Great. Good for you. Okay. So when you're playing machete ball, have fun with that. But watching them lose is just like the greatest feeling on earth when it happens.
Sorry, Rich. Yeah.
But
I'm not even gonna bug on Rich today because he had to watch James Harden do James Harden things yesterday, and my sympathies for Rich are extensive right now because Joel Embiid disappeared and James Harden was was James Harden.
Yeah. But, I love Philly. I love the city of Philadelphia. But, to me, if you look around this league, before LAFC came in and we were just the only big spenders, right? Because the old guard was flipping out, like the Galaxy. Like, we were the original big spenders. Okay. You had DC that is looking at like an old decrepit mausoleum of what their greatness was and saying, well, we're the originals. Yeah. There's a dusty mausoleum with cobwebs.
And raccoons where you started your play when you started in the league 25 years previous.
Correct. Right. So, I'm tired of hearing from the ghosts of Christmas past about what was, and I'm tired of hearing about, a bunch of teams that are only going to do things, in this cheap ass way. LAFC, they're doing things the right way, right? They have some big swings.
John Thorrington is being very imaginative when it comes to the cap.
They've done big swings. They've brought people up. They've done some very good TAM level signings. They brought in the ghost of Chiellini, who I'm going to say has probably from even a coaching perspective helped their back line.
Yeah.
But, give me big swings every time, every day of the week. We're signing some kid from where? Huh? Who's after him? How much of a transfer fee? Okay, let's do it. Let's go. I'll take that. Yeah. I mean, Chicago Fire. Who wants to be a Chicago Fire fan right now? Right? I mean,
the 12 folks that show up at the spaceship for a home game.
Well, and see, what I wonder is if with Garth coming in and being a part of this, with his history in Seattle, I do wonder if we're going to see more of the Yorgos style DP signings where you're going to swing big.
Yeah.
But you're swinging big for a guy who might be 26 versus might be 19 or 20, somebody who is more established, who you're asking, hey, you might come in here and set it on fire and maybe jump to somewhere else, but you might also be you might look for a Nicolas Ladero kind of signing.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
And you might say, hey, we'll drop 12, 13 million potentially, but we're going to do it for somebody that we're not necessarily. Maybe he moves on. I don't know, but maybe he comes in here and uses his prime years here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and think about,
and it's a changing approach.
Yeah, when Garth was on the soccer side in Seattle, you're looking at Rui Diaz, you're looking at Ladero, you're looking at the tail end bringing in an Albert Rusnak to be a part of that discussion.
I'm still so pissed off at this league that they let have Albert Rusnak. This is the same, and I know it didn't work out. This is the same feeling I had when Clyde Edwards-Helaire got drafted by the Chiefs after the Super Bowl. Like, did y'all not watch the college football season in 2019? Like, you idiots let Andy Reid have arguably the most dynamic running back in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically gave him another version of Brian Westbrook, for those of you who remember the Philadelphia Eagles in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Rich Ransom, there you go. So, but that's the thing. It's like, would you rather swing big, hit big, and miss? Would you rather hit the home run and then would you rather be Dave Kingman? Or there's your Google reference for the day. Would you rather hit big and have those opportunities to hit big, or not hit as big? If you make an investment, you make an investment, but at the same time you hit big off the other side. And would you rather have that, or would you rather be a Minnesota? Would you rather be a Colorado? Would you rather be in those situations? Would you rather be an RSL, say? Which would you rather? Would you want to take big swings and sit there and give 43,000 folks a reason to sit in a building because of the big swings that you make on a worldwide scale, in addition to building through your academy? Or would you rather be those teams that are not wanting to sit there and be a grande out of the blocks and be understood, Nick, on a worldwide basis?
Well, I mean, my thing is, Jared, who was Giacomakis before he came here? Like toward the tail end, like right before the transfer happened. Who was he at Celtic?
Yeah, Yorgos Giacomakis he was kind of, man. It's hard to pin down. Okay, and I know you're asking a straightforward question, and I'm not going to give you a straightforward answer. I apologize about that ahead of time, because the Scottish Player of the Year this year was Kyogo Furuhashi, who's the starting striker for Celtic. He is an absolute delight of a human being and an absolute delight of a player. Yorgos put up a Golden Boot season playing part-time behind him
Part-time?
at Celtic. He started half the season because Kyogo was hurt. Kyogo was the guy that Ange brought in to be that guy. Yorgos was like a signing in the 11th hours. The window was closing. We need a backup striker. And that's what you got. You got Yorgos Giacomakis out of VVV Venlo, who had been coming off of a season where he put up the Golden Boot in a relegation campaign. Like, I don't know. This was the thing that I don't know if I articulated it efficiently, that one of the reasons I was very excited, Celtic aside and my allegiances aside, you brought in a guy who put up a Golden Boot campaign in a relegation campaign for his team, and then put up a Golden Boot campaign while not starting every single game for a Champions League club the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he's a weird one to peg down, though, because because he was playing behind Furuhashi. He was coming in and being a closer in games.
Right.
It was kind of hard to peg down.
He wasn't a traditional striker stud guy that was like, oh my God, everyone in the world is trying to sign this dude. Like, he was a guy who was like, oh, okay, he's coming off the bench. He's a backup striker. Okay, he's doing really well. He has a history of performing. But that, to me, is a big swing when you go get him. That's a big swing, right?
I agree. I would love for MLS to go hunting in the J League and the K League. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, hit all the alphabet. J League, K League. Coco brings in
A League.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, and some of this is because I have sat here for 2 years now and watched this angry Greek Australian manager go pillage the J League for these guys. Mm-hmm. And, one of them was Player of the Year. Another one was nominated for Player of the Year on Reo Hatate, who I would give my left leg to have Reo Hatate here as a TAM 8 or even a DP 8, because Jesus, once that dude hit the ground and got his rhythm, like, dude was playing just out of his damn mind as a really aggressive box-to-box midfielder.
Well, and Alex is asking, but was he a big swing? He had a proven goal-scoring record.
Coming off, for someone who is a backup striker, to me, that's a big swing.
Yeah, he wanted out of Glasgow. He wanted to start. Yorgos is that dude, man. Like, we talked about this ad nauseum. He's that dude. He came into the press conference and said, I'm going to wear 7. Mm-hmm. Who wore 7 last? That's fine. I'm going to wear that number. Give me all of that smoke.
Because he said the same, because he recognized.
Also, partially because he's Greek, and every Greek person I know in my life has had that confidence, and I appreciate it from him.
Because he knew going to Celtic what that number meant that he wore, wanted the smoke there, and then is doing the same thing with what he wants in Atlanta. He understands the smoke that's coming his way.
Well, in my mind, look, I don't think Araujo was a project coming in from Ligue 1. I mean, he was a champion. That's not a project, so it's not anything that you had to build, in my mind, him coming over from Ligue 1, it's like, oh, damn, we're getting like
you're getting a Ligue 1 champ coming.
We're getting a champion. Okay.
And to Niall's point, that's what you're looking for in those situations. You're not looking for a project. You're looking for, hey, I need you to come and hit the ground running.
Right. So, there is it's easy to get trapped into the gravity of success, right? And I've said it before. Mm-hmm. one day you're on top, the next day you're scraping the mud. One day you're scraping the mud, the next day you're on top. But it's your skill level and your ability to weather the challenging times is what keeps that time in the muck at a minimum. So Atlanta is in a position now where they are going to have to sort this intensity issue. They're going to have to sort the competitive issue. They're going to have to sort the injuries and red cards and all that. I love what Yorgos has been saying this whole time. We got to win because we need people to come in and we got to send them home happy. He to me, he's bringing that Ric Flair energy. Like I'm filling up the Superdome and I'm not doing a job for nobody. He's going to walk that aisle. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to. I want more of that energy. Like the players who are like, I'm going to walk that aisle and the crowd's going to be chanting some names at the end. And my name's going to be one of them. I don't know about you, but my name's going to be one of them. Mm-hmm. And so I want to see who is going to step up. I don't know who's going to be the leader, the vocal leader on that back line, because God knows they need one. Miles can be in all the right places at all the right times. And I think largely he has been. And in the times that he has not been, I think he's issued very good tackles and panic moments. But I'm not seeing anyone on that back line shouting, screaming, yelling, calling out coverages. I'm not seeing any of that. And that to me is what the concern is. Because when you see Justin Meram hanging out, by the back post like a U8 game, like that to me is like, Jesus Christ, guys, we got to, I don't know, solve that. And then to have a similar situation happen again, it was like, okay, this is something that must be solved quickly. And Michael says, well, maybe the season continues down this path and there is no leader. You know what? If that happens, then that happens. And, I can try to future-proof that by, making changes here and there, by changing players who are lacking intensity and they can sit on their butts until they decide that they're going to develop that intensity, or they can find their way out.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But it's part of the process, man. And you could be mad at Bocanegra, you could be mad at Pineda, you could be mad at players. That is your right to do those things. That's your right to be in that position. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm sunshine happy, but I am saying that I look at this team and I see issues that are correctable if they want to be corrected. If you want to correct intensity, you can correct intensity. You're going to pay for it physically. You're going to pay for it mentally, but you can fix lapses in intensity. You can, no one's asking you to change your personality, but if you look around and you say, hey, nobody's yelling and screaming right now about this impending attack that's, rushing our way, maybe I need to start yelling and screaming. That's just something that you need to start growing into maybe a little bit faster than you're comfortable doing. Everybody needs to be out of their comfort zone. And I think that's what Pineda's probably going to be working on this short week, because I can't change anything crazy tactically, game on Wednesday. But what I can do is say, all right, everybody's out of their damn comfort zone this week, and we're going to be kicking some ass. And if you're not kicking ass, you could be riding pine. And you could be telling me how those plastic splinters feel in the ass when you're sitting there nonstop. So, I mean, that's, if somebody, Michael, if you want apathy or not want it, but if you're feeling apathetic to the situation and others are feeling apathetic to the situation, then that is your choice as a consumer of a business to feel that way. It's up to you on your level of investment financially and emotionally. That is completely on you to make that choice. But I see opportunities for some people who are sitting on the pine right now to start getting some playing time if the intensity doesn't pick up. And I think that's where you need to be.
Well, because what is it they say? Out of crisis comes opportunity.
Correct. Chaos and crisis.
Mm-hmm. And Bam, to answer your question, Brad was scheduled to be out 10 weeks. He is already back at practice, and that's we'll put that term in quotation marks when it comes to levels of participation, percentage of energy attached. So he's back at practice after 4.5, after he is scheduled to be out for 10. So you're looking at another, say, 6 weeks before Brad comes back in and should be your number one keeper, and you get that vocal presence. The polar bear's back there, and he's hair drying everybody. So it's another, say, 6 weeks that you're staring at before Brad is back between the sticks, anticipated for Atlanta United going forward. So, but yeah, that's what you're staring at. And I know a lot of folks are, wondering about the window. I think you're probably looking at what? Backup striker, maybe a winger, and then trying to figure it out from there when you get into the window, which is June to August. And the other element in this that we'll get into is that if there is interest on Thiago Almada, and we know there is, but since we're not in the window, we'll go ahead and say if, that the longer a deal takes for a European club to show interest, close interest on a Thiago Almada, you also have the opportunity to keep Thiago Almada to the end of the season, whenever that is, because Nick, as our connoisseur of European football, if you're not there at the beginning of training camp, and the longer a negotiation takes for an MLS talent to go overseas, the less time that they have to be integrated into a lineup for a European football club, and you're not doing that European football club any good if you're not there at the beginning of training camp.
Yeah, and there are some teams that are more open to mid-season acquisitions than others.
Mm-hmm.
Napoli, for example, they're going to want you to be more integrated into the culture and more integrated into the squad. In that situation, I would say that if your Champions League is also going to play a role in this, so where let's say, like with Almada, he goes to a deal is made with Napoli, and Napoli says, okay, we're going to loan him back to you until like October, November. The reason why they would do that is they know that come, Champions League, the winter fixtures, they're going to need people. They're going to need bodies.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be opportunity for him to come into that space and work well in that window. It doesn't necessarily help them to have him come in the summer when he has been going since, he's been playing all the way through. He hasn't had the break. Yeah. He hasn't had a break. You're not really going to get the best out of him in that time frame. You might as well let him finish his league up, let him have a month of recovery. And, where that month of recovery, he's in Naples, he's working with the team, he's learning the language, and he's building relationships during that down period, instead of coming in the middle where there's no break, there's no rest, and now you're really asking to tax a player mentally and physically.
Jarrett, when you look at the window, I know a lot of folks are sitting there. We are operating under the assumption that central attacking mid is going to be sought after from Atlanta United, but then Atlanta United in turn, backup striker, winger, central attacking mid. Are you staring at anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking if you can improve the midfield at the 8.
Yeah.
Especially it depends. I mean, Jesus, Matt Ryan's going to the table?
Yep.
Oh, Matt Ryan's retiring.
CBS Sports. He is now going to be an analyst.
I was low-key hoping he would come here.
Yeah, he's going to be an
Come
analyst.
here, play one season as a backup, be a mentor, and just retire where you should have, Matt. Should have retired in Atlanta.
But CBS
it should have ended here. You also should have ended with a ring. You deserve better, Matthew.
I will say the best social experiment that I ever had was being in Boston for that Super Bowl.
I don't want to talk about it. I'd rather talk about the midfield, because if you can find a high grade TAM DP caliber midfielder, I think you're looking at that. A guy like a Marseille, I think, will always have value on a team like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's always very useful.
Best season of his career. And
he's been a great get. Dude is sandpaper, man. And he busts his tail out there for you. If you can improve that position, you're going to do it. So where it gets interesting for me is, Nick, I know you were talking about this with the attitude, with the way the players have responded to things. So we've had this now for the better part of, we've had a couple of these, going back to the Memphis game, even where you've got, this conversation of, we weren't, we didn't show the same intensity. And I know a lot of the discussion has been that's on the manager. Some of it is. Some of it's on the players, because I need you to, and it's great that you play a game for a living. I love anyone who gets a chance to play a game for a living. But to steal a line from the great white North prophet Shorzy,
mm-hmm.
You gotta hate to lose more than you love to win.
Yeah.
And if your intensity is not there, I'm going to find someone's who is.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means it's kids, then it's kids.
Yeah.
But you gotta bring the fight. You gotta.
Yeah.
You can't. If you lose a game, losing games happens. I don't like losing the fight. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not that simple. I know. I'm really oversimplifying it. But I don't like losing the fight.
Not really. Look, in the Marines, it was the same thing. You had Marines who were running first-class PFTs, right? Like first-class fitness tests. They could do, they could do pull-ups all day long, all the crunches. They could do the 3-mile run in, 19 minutes. I mean, they were cooking. But what you have is, in training situations, you had guys who would shut off
mm-hmm.
at periods. And you had guys who were not the most stellar performers in every other, back in the barracks, they call them barracks Marines, right? Yeah. Barracks Marines and field Marines. The field Marines were the ones who had that dog in them. They were always ready to dial up. They were always ready to dial up, but they were 100% about team. They were 100% about, I'm doing my job. I'm not trying to run the whole show. I'm going to do my job to the best of my abilities, and you're going to get everything out of me today. And that's what can get you across the line, right? It's not just, I'm going to put forth, maximum effort. It's maximum effort, but doing your job. We all hate the Patriots here in Atlanta. They have signs. Go into Foxborough, go anywhere in Gillette Stadium, and every damn hallway has a sign that says, do your job. From the popcorn makers down to the offensive tackles, they all have that sign in front of them that says, do your job. And I don't care if it's the Marines. I don't care if it's professional sports. You got to have people who understand, do your job. If you do your job well and somebody else does their job well and another person and another, and you have one person who's not, it's easier to survive that if everybody knows their job and they're doing just their best, but they're not quite, maybe it's just an off day for them, whatever. It's easier to survive if you have more people carrying that intensity, not just, physical output, but that intensity in, I'm going to do the little things right. And I know that's all crazy ass cliche, but I promise you, if you have not done a job where a certain level of physicality is involved for an extended period of time, I promise you that will get you over the line if you focus on doing little things right. And you're dialing up the intensity physically and mentally. It's not just all physical. It is mental. It's mental preparation. It's making sure you're in a good mental headspace. When you're on the rifle range and you're doing 500 yards open sight, you don't hear the drill instructors yelling and screaming and the marksmanship instructors yelling and screaming like, ah, do it up and around. No, they say, hey, look, what's your mindset right now? Huh? Sir? What's your mindset? Are you focusing on your positive mental attitude? What? Like, what? That does not could do. Like, what? How often have we heard that in boot camp? That happens actually a lot at the rifle range. Positive mental attitude, your mentality, your mindset absolutely plays a role on performance. It absolutely does. And all the people who were negative, had negative mindset, they get down on themselves, and one mistake becomes another mistake, and they start compounding.
Yeah.
But what happens is, whenever you have a positive mental attitude and those inevitable blips happen, it's survivable. And that's what is happening. I think what needs to be happening now across the board is that we need to focus on positive mental attitude, maximum effort, focus on the little things, and do your job. That's the only way you're getting out of this rut. Nothing, no Herculean performance, nobody becoming Maradona overnight. Do your job. End statement.
There you go.
Yeah, and to Alex's point, yeah, I mean, I know it's not just effort. I mean, I know it's deeper than that, and I don't want to like oversimplify things to too much of an extreme. That it's more than effort. But the discussion gets brought up because you've had a couple of games now where you've had your manager say, they were not in the fight, and it's tough when that's getting pointed out that you didn't bring that same intensity and that same fight in your building. That's what I mean. And I know it's not as simple as you're not going to go get a couple kids off the twos and ask them to go out there and blow people away. But man, it's you don't really ever want that. You definitely don't want it more than once where you're having this conversation of, are we just not up for it? Like that's. And again, I know it can be complicated, but you hate for that conversation to even come up.
Yep, Gonzalo Pineda after the match, when he was asked on if the lack of intensity is surprising, says it feels like we haven't come back to the beginning of the season where I felt the full determination and the commitment. It isn't like we're far away from that, not that far, but it feels like the opponent wants it a little bit more in the last two games especially. So we need to come back to that. And they need to realize, meaning the team needs to realize that every opponent at home is very valuable, and we need to win at home every time, but we need to start with the mentality, end quote.
And that's the thing is, I think one of the reasons it gets frustrating, for me, speaking just for me and not for you guys, is you go back and look at some of the performances you had earlier this year. They fought like dogs in the streets. So it's in there, and you just wonder what's missing right now. Is it Yorgos? Is it more than that? Because you didn't have him on the field in Charlotte. You fought like dogs in Charlotte, and I know he has been a huge part of that when he has been on the field for this team. But you've shown that you've got that, and you've had some games this year, the Red Bulls game especially. And I get the Red Bulls are a mess, but you've shown that you've got that fight in your blood somewhere. Mm-hmm. So now I need you to show it. Now it's crunch time.
Michael's asking, how do we season after season have such a fragile team that giving up the first goal means a loss?
I mean, as I said, it happens around the league, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like teams that go down, I mean, it's tough, and especially the way you play, where you want the ball anyway, and you want possession, you want to knock it around. You're not really in those moments. You feasted, especially this year. Go look at some of their best games, their best moments. They have feasted in transition moments.
Yep.
It's hard to get transition moments when a team gets an early lead on. When you let a team, not even just when they do it, when you let a team get an early lead on you, and then they are able to sit back more. It's harder to find those transition moments. You end up building against a wall, which is, something you struggled with at times in the latter half of 18 and 19 as well, and 20. It was a more deliberate buildup in 19. But it's tough when you want to play, when you are going to hurt them in transition moments, which is always great when you do. But you give up an early goal for whatever reason, a failure at some point along the lines, and then you're chasing. It's tough with the way you want to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to work your ass off, dig deeper, work twice as hard to get kind of back in it, and then keep your mentality and not give up the goal after that.
Pineda, when he was asked him why he thinks intensity has dropped recently, quote, "I feel like momentum matters. And in that moment, I feel like preseason was pretty good." Jarrett, to your point, we were honestly in a very good standard in terms of that level of intensity. And again, that international window kind of killed that little momentum that we had. After that break, I don't think we played at the same caliber. The New York Red Bulls game was probably one that I think we played at the same intensity, but after that, no, I haven't felt it. Again, we have it because otherwise we wouldn't have shown it at the beginning of the season. And again, we're not that far because the margins in MLS are very, very small. So it is not like it's very easy to win in this league, as you see constantly with many, many results that seem to be not likely, and yet it happens. We just need to find that extra boost of intensity to get the results that we need. At times it can be pretty. Sometimes it might not be the best football, but we need to always have full commitment, and that is what we need, end quote. So, Nick, that was what Gonzalo said after the match yesterday or Saturday.
Right. I understand what Gonzo's saying, right? I don't take it as that damn international break did it. I just think that coming back from the international break, something changed with the team, right? Either chemistry was not there, or the if either chemistry or I don't know, exhaustion or what. I honestly don't know. But my thought process on that is that you can have the greatest tacticians in the world. They're not going to be able to make any sort of change, when it comes to, the output, right? That no tactics will solve poor intensity. No legendary tactics will solve players being in their own head in front of the keeper. Mm-hmm. These are things that the players are going to have to work through. I don't know if there's a manager right now available out there who would be able to come in and change up what people are wanting changed up.
Yeah.
I don't I mean, who out there is available at the moment? And before anyone says Tata Martino, he's out there, dude. Tata lived here in a house by himself. His wife lived down in Argentina. She was not going to come up here and stay in America. I firmly do not believe he is coming back to MLS. So outside of that, who else is coming in? Who are you going to raid from Europe? We had Frank de Boer. Everyone complained that Frank de Boer was Frank de Boering. One goal wins here and there. People complained about that. Now I'm seeing people, Frank makes me wish we had Frank back. Look, I'm sorry, things weren't that bad under Frank until Joseph Sneak discombobulated, and then MLS is back, went off the rails. Frank's wife moved back to the Netherlands, and Frank was also here by himself. So, who are you going to get? Mm-hmm. At this point, you might as well ride out until, because there will be people who will say, Rob Valentino needs to be the guy to run things up. If you think he's ready to run a club full time, I don't know if he's necessarily ready to do that, but the tactics are not going to shift dramatically, because until you have everybody back healthy and working through whatever mental and physical issues are happening right now, there's no point to change the whole system up. Change little things. Move a player from one position, from a right side to a left side, change something to that effect. Maybe change who your, the midfield combination. But tactically, you don't want to shift everything up. We've talked about that earlier. It causes more problems than it solves. But I agree with people when they say something has to change. I am in agreement with you there. And I'm in agreement with the fact that the recent results are very worrying. I think we may disagree on what needs to happen in order to get us to where we want to be.
The corrective measures, yeah.
The corrective measures, yeah.
To answer the question that was posed earlier in the show, it was, I think 3 is the longest losing streak that Atlanta United has had in Major League Soccer, and it happened twice during the MLS's back season. There have been times where Atlanta United has lost 4 of 5, but in a row, 3 in a row is the most that they have lost in any given run. But yeah, MLS's back year was when that happened. It happened twice, and it happened in pretty quick succession. So that was the answer to that. Quickly before we go, it is Leicester and Liverpool. I know that Nick's is probably going to be camped out in front of the Tube at 3:00 for that one, with Leicester in the heart of the relegation battle. And there's a story out on Leicester where, no real surprise, but if they do get relegated, player salaries for those that stay get knocked about 50%, and there are other issues attached. We'll get into that tomorrow. Other stuff going on. ESPN Deportes at 3, Real Betis, Rayo Vallecano. Fox Deportes, the doubleheader with Liga MX Femenil at 9 and 11. Gold TV has the Ecuadorian Primera at 8:00. If you are interested in those kinds of channels, whether it's BN, Goal, For the Fans, TIC, go to fanatisfntz.co/soccer down here. And that it helps out the show, helps you out in looking at some of the other places where you can watch matches. Apple TV and MLS Season Pass has the Flex U19 tournament going on right now. Vardar and Toronto FC is going on. Miami Rush Kendall and FC Cincinnati's at 1:30. On the Plus, it is La Liga Santander, Betis Vallecano, and La Liga Smart Bank at 3:00, Levante and Ibiza. Paramount Plus has a full day in the Argentine Primera, 4 matches, 2:35 and 2 at 7:30 in Serie A, Sampdoria and Empoli at 2:45. We didn't even get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo, or Barca, or Pochettino, or anything else that has been going on, and we can get into that tomorrow, no question, because tomorrow you've also got Champions League, Nick, Inter and AC Milan. That is going on tomorrow at 3:00. Down 2-0 in the aggregate.
God.
So that's at 3:00 tomorrow, as well as promotion playoffs in England. That hurt. And Uncle and a lot of folks, as they said, they're holding on for the transfer window and checking out and see what goes on in the transfer window. Garth has said he's looking for anywhere from 1 to 3, and so we'll see what that looks like as we get into the transfer window.
I love it. Big swings, baby. Big swings.
Yeah, and got to get ready for the match with Colorado in the midweek. So here's the lay of the land. Obviously, tomorrow is normal. We'll have all of the network programming all the way throughout the week. Wednesday, it is a midweek whip around, patent pending, trademark coming sooner rather than later. Hopefully, probably, possibly, maybe, because of the action going on. So whip around will be in the 9:00 hour on Wednesday. Then we'll have Dylan and Reffing down here with Bart Keeler at 10:30. Thursday, we'll be back to what we did today, just talking about the match with the Colorado match. That'll be Thursday. So it will be a reaction Thursday with what happened in the Colorado match. And then Friday is normal, 9:00 Beyond Goals, friends there at 9:30. And then the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming at 10:00 in the 10:00 hour. And then Friday night, about 7:20. It's going to be Atlanta United 2 and Orlando City B from Osceola County. And I'll have the play-by-play for that, but that'll be on at 7:20 with a pregame show matched in there. Next two for the twos are on the road. We didn't get a chance to talk about the twos yesterday and hanging with Crown Legacy as long as they did. So a lot of stuff on the table for Tuesday. Final thoughts, Jarrett Smith, before we go.
Short week.
Yes.
I mentioned on the full-time report, which was very surreal to do. It's very weird.
Well done, by the way.
You could have picked a better game to give me, Jesus Christ. But I mentioned, some guys like having a short break after a clunker, so they can just put it out of mind. Some guys like to have more time to go over it and focus, and then readjust. Yeah. You are getting the former in this case. Yesterday was, Sunday was going to be probably mostly regen. Guys, have a little bit of personal time to themselves. Today's going to be full regen. You're at the training facility. You're getting regenerative. You're getting regen. You're getting ready. Tuesday is going to be a very light training session because you have a game on Wednesday. You're not going to put yourself through your paces. And then Wednesday's game day. So no time to sulk on it. And look to Miami. I know that's a weird thing to say. Look to Montreal. Won 4 straight and making me look like a dumbass. It is possible to pull yourself out of a tailspin. Yeah. And to get things on the right foot. But only you can do it.
Nick, final words from you before we go.
I actually love that we're having this discourse on the Twitch pitch. I don't want everyone agreeing with me. If I'm in a room and everyone's agreeing with me, I'm probably like in some kind of weird cult slasher film, and I probably need to get out quickly. So, we love this team. I think largely. We all have different ideas for how we get things right. We all have different ideas for what it's going to take to get things moving in the right direction. But at the end of the day, we're all here, we're discussing it. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we have the space to do it. Jarrett, you did a phenomenal job on with Conti on the full-time report. So
phenomenal.
Well done
Abby,
on that.
Abby, you didn't miss much. Thank you guys, and thank you all y'all that stayed.
Man, shut your damn.
No. Thank y'all for showing up for the Unified game.
Yes,
Mike and I were watching it. It was a lot of fun. You guys made a tifo. People showed up. That was, and I know not everybody can stay. I mean, if you're bringing kids, you've got to get home. You're beating traffic. It's Saturday night. You might be getting up for church in the morning. You might be getting up for for whatever. You might got a tea time. Those of y'all that stayed, it means a lot to them. Yep. Thanks for doing it.
Good on you. I mean, especially for a match that ended about 11:15, 11:30. And no, it was great to see the support. And even you had Charlotte fans staying to root on the Charlotte FC Unified bunch too. So very, very cool for the day. That is the first match. It's the only home match of the year. Next match for the Unified team is at Red Bull Arena on June 24. And it'll be their first trip to New York. And then they'll finish up their season September 3rd, I think. September 3rd in Dallas against the FC Dallas Unified team there in Frisco. So very, very cool stuff. And for the Hoff, the air fryer, Joe Fryhofer, to announce the 2 all-star bids in the post-game show there to everybody that was still there in-house. Very, very cool. That we got to send, that we're sending 2 players from the Atlanta United Unified team to DC to be a part of All-Star Weekend. So very, very cool stuff. Yeah, Abby was at the Newcastle event at God Why O'Clock. And Darren was there with camera crew in the supporters New Gulch, and he was hanging out. So it was good to see Darren as well. But very, very busy weekend, quick turnaround, time to talk about it and get moving and get ready for Colorado. Very, very busy week here at SDH. So, all right. I'm going to see if I can coordinate this here. Jarrett and Nick, send us home since you're both here.
Mucho platico.
What he said.
There you go. End of the show. So that means we get to do this. We'll do it again tomorrow. Bye.